What's going on, everybody? This is the Daily Fantasy Show brought to you by DFO. It is Thursday, December 14th. I'm Josh. I'm sure you can hear Avery. Waiting for my internet to load here. So we're not flying blind here. You got your Play-Doh? Okay, there we go. So we got a massive 12-game slate tonight. Not really sure how to approach this. I'll probably just go game by game like I normally do. And then I'll briefly touch on all the games. And then we'll do some questions at the end because I don't want to spend 10 minutes on each game because then we'll be here until lock. So.
Why?
Why not?
Why not?
Nice. Congrats, man. That's probably a nice little haul for you. There we go. So let's hop right into it. I'm going to try to keep my analysis brief because there's a lot to digest. I'll take more questions than usual at the end. That way, we can cover what people really like, what I really don't like, etc. We'll let that load. So let's move to the first game of the night. We have the Washington. You're going to eat your burger?
I know I'm not.
You're not? Okay. First game of the night, we have the Washington Capitals traveling to Boston to face the Bruins. It is Anton Khudobin against Braden Holtby. Boston's on a back-to-back. They won in overtime last night. Boston did nothing for the first 59 minutes of the game. They scored in the final minute. Then Marchand scored quickly into overtime. So on a huge slate like this, I don't know. I'm probably going to avoid Boston tonight. There is merit for them to being a top play. They are pretty expensive tonight, though. They're the second most expensive stack besides Tampa Bay. If you want to target Boston, I think it's okay. But for me, with 24 teams on the slate, I'm probably going to avoid a team on a back-to-back. Yeah, they're going to get up against Holtby, and I think that factors in a little bit. So they may be, what would I consider chalky, above 10% on a 12-gamer. I'm not really sure there's going to be a massive chalky spot. Tampa Bay is in a really good matchup, but they're over 22,000 a full stack, and that is just super expensive. So for me, I think I'm going to avoid Boston tonight. They are going up against Holtby. They are on a back-to-back. And this
is Daddy.
You're Avery, and this is Daddy. Yeah. So for me, on the Washington side, I kind of like this matchup tonight. I got you, buddy. Don't worry. Yeah, they didn't look very good last night. Maybe it had something to do with 9 people in the stands. There was like 2 feet of snow. But, Bergeron's going to hard match against Backstrom. So, I'm not overly thrilled with the top line of Washington. But if you want to use the second line of Washington, I think that is a viable strategy. Kuznetsov has been playing really well lately. He does get top power play time. He's on with Jacob Vrana and I believe Alex Chiasson. I wish it was Andrei Burakovsky. Yeah, on a 12-game slate, I like to keep it simple, stupid, the KISS approach. Don't overthink it. If you can fit in a lineup with Tampa 1 because you like them the best, then that's what you should do.
No.
As far as Washington 2, I wish Burakovsky was on the second line. Maybe he moves up, but I don't mind that second line even with Chiasson. He is 3,000. Let you get in a more expensive stack. On the blue line, you know, Niskanen's getting expensive at 4,100, but I still think he's a viable punt. If you can fit Carlson in, I think you can do it. He is 6,300. I'd rather spend the extra couple hundred for Burns, who looks like he's back to being Burns. In net, that's a D and that's a G, yeah. That's a W and that's a C. Okay, so in net, Kudobin, I'm probably going to fade, even though this is like a decent matchup for him. They're at home. They are on a back-to-back, though. I'd rather play Holtby at 7,500. Neither of these goalies really excite me. I think there's better spots. Yeah, Burns is probably going to be popular tonight. I agree with that take. Okay. I'm probably going to fade the goalies from this game just because for the price, I think you can get better matchups for a little bit less or a little bit more money.
More money?
More money, more problems, right? Okay. That's all right. Just relax. I don't know why this is not loading, but okay. So let's move on. Here, come over here. Wow. Here. So let's move on to the second game of the night. We have the Buffalo Sabres traveling to Philadelphia to face the Flyers. It's going to be Brian Elliott against Robin Lehner. I think from a pure matchup standpoint, I think Philadelphia won is in a really good spot tonight, especially with Buffalo even strength lines being the mess that they are. You know, Simmons brings down the cost on that line a little bit. Okay, buddy. Okay. So I think, you know, as one of the top plays, I think Philadelphia is up there. Couturier is 6,500. Sorry, my internet's really slow today. It's because it's windy and it's snowing. Giroux is 6,300 and Simmons is 5,500, which is $1,100 cheaper than Voracek. Avery's back. You know, from a pure like single bullet standpoint, if you don't want to use the top line, I think Voracek is a solid play as well. But he is pricey. Okay. So for me, I really do like the top line tonight. I think if you want to get sneaky, I don't think you really need to get sneaky on this slate, but if you really want to save some salary, I do. Okay. I think the third line, mini of like Patrick and Wheel, it's only 6,200 between them. I think if you're trying to jam in a Tampa Bay and maybe another expensive player, you can, you know, pop in Patrick or Wheel. I prefer them to Fippola and Raffle, even though, you know, Voracek is on that line. I think the third line is a little sneaky play there, just because Buffalo at even strength is just a mess. They're a mess on the PK. Okay. Okay. Just watch your iPad for a little bit, okay? You know, so the Sabres still at even strength. They're Eichel, Benoit, Pouliot, and Pominville, which is okay. They're going to get the Couturier line. Okay. Which is, you know, a good matchup for Philadelphia one. You know, the second line, O'Reilly, my boy Zemgus, and Okposo is okay. I mean, Okposo's been pretty rough this season. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of the Sabres tonight. Obviously, there's always a case for an Eichel line, or even, you know, the third line with Evan Rodriguez, Kane, and Reinhart. But for me, I actually kind of like Brian Elliott in this game. I'm not sure if I woke up taking crazy pills or what, but at 7,700, I think, you know, Brian Elliott's viable tonight.
I'm pooping.
Okay.
I'm done
Okay. Um, yeah, everyone, says I love the Flyers, and um, maybe that's true. But I am a Rangers fan. But
I'm going over.
this is the thing. Like, Elliott's better than people think. There's like that misconception that Flyers goalies suck, and maybe it's their system. And it definitely could be possible. Bobrovsky struggled in the Philadelphia system. Brizgalov struggled. Brizgalov struggled in the stop in the system and all that. So, but tonight I do like Brian Elliott. Okay, so sing it. Yeah, he's better than people think. With Robin Leonard, if you're fading the Flyers and using some Sabres, okay, I think this is a pretty tough matchup for him on the road. Okay. So, Leonard's kind of like a GPP Flyer for me. He's down low on the list. If you're using... Okay, just please relax. He's fired up today. If you're using the Flyers top line, you want to fit them in with Ghost, you can. 5,300, Provorov, 4,900 is also in play. And here we go for a couple punts. I might get, roasted for this take. I kind of like Andrew McDonald, too. At 3,000, he's been seeing... You like Andrew McDonald? Yeah, probably because his last name is McDonald.
You want hamburger?
I don't want a hamburger.
I want to.
Okay. He has been seeing over 20 minutes of time on the ice. His peripherals aren't great, but don't give me that face. Listen, for 3,000, I think you can go there. Just based on pure ice time, if he happens to accidentally block a few shots. Yeah, Vince Dunn is in play too, but I'm talking for us who are using the Flyers tonight. I'm not completely sold on St. Louis. Yeah. So there's that. I mean, you can also punt Robert Hagg at 2,900 as well, but I probably spend the extra 100 for McDonald, as crazy as that sounds.
Me too.
Yeah. On the Buffalo side, on D, I think Rasmus Ristolainen makes for a good cash game play. He's 4,800. He's plays like 700 minutes a night. If you want to use Scandella at 3,100, okay. But other than that, you want to use Zach Bogosian at 3,000, okay. I think you're chasing points there. Okay. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have... This is such a big slate. Holy moly. We have... Yeah, I think you can use, Buffalo and a GPP for sure. I mean, it's kind of hard to eliminate a lot of teams tonight.
Buffalo?
Yeah, Buffalo.
Where's Buffalo going? Where's Buffalo?
I don't know. So, the Eichel line's definitely in play. I like the third line as well. The problem with Buffalo is like they have three lines you can use. I guess you can kind of eliminate the second line. Most of these teams are going to be low on tonight. I just think there's so many lines to choose from, and yeah. So let's move on to the Islanders traveling to Columbus to face the Blue Jackets. The Islanders got whacked last night by Dallas 5-2. Now the Islanders travel. Yeah, I should just get him a mic, get him a headset or something. So the Islanders are in Columbus. It's going to be, I know, Thomas Greiss, and it's probably going to be Bob. You never know. Torts. Yeah, Bob. You're a minion.
No, I'm not. I'm Avery.
You're Avery. Okay. So this game doesn't really interest me too much, so I won't really spend too much time here. The one thing I will say with Columbus, Josh Anderson has been a beast, and I think
I'm making meat.
You're making meat? Okay. So I think you can use the top line, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Josh Anderson, and Panarin. I think a sneaky play tonight would be the second line, Wenberg, Atkinson. Okay. and Jenner. They're going to be, I would imagine they're going to be low on tonight. People will key in on the top line just because how good Josh Anderson has been. Okay. Torts is always whipping someone or killing somebody or cursing off someone or walking dogs or whatever. Yeah, whatever Torts does.
Dogs, Daddy.
Yeah, dogs.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that the second line is pretty cheap, especially, Wenberg's only 4,000. Atkinson's price is dropping because he hasn't been doing too much. Yeah, this is a revenge narrative if you want to go down narrative street. That is a fun street to go down. Columbus, I think it's always tough to pick between Werenski and Jones. It's a preference play. If I'm using Columbus, sometimes I like to play both just to, I don't know if that's a contrarian play. I think a lot of people tend to do that because they don't know who to choose, so they take both. But they are in the same pair. Jones is $500 cheaper. So it depends on your build. I do prefer Werenski. Sarah, come on now. I do prefer Werenski just because he is on the power play. So is Jones. I think he's on the second unit, but it's really a matter of preference. I think this is a good matchup for both. I think you can use both if you're using Columbus. I think you will see some ownership on the top line tonight. That is without a doubt. But do you really have to fade? Are you going to fade a line with ownership concerns tonight? I don't think so. There's so many different ways to differentiate your lineups tonight, and there's going to be so many different ways to win tonight that I think you just need to don't overthink it and lock in your favorite plays. What? Cool. In net, Thomas Grice played about half the game yesterday. He's going back to back on the road. He is 7,100. I do like Thomas Grice, but I don't know. This isn't the matchup for me. I think I am going to pass here as well. There's a couple of goalies that I like a lot better. So, if you want to get funky in a GPP, okay. But for me, I'm not really targeting the Islanders tonight. They're back-to-back on the road. I crossed them out kind of early. If it burns me, it burns me. But you do have to take some stands somewhere, especially with 24 teams playing. Bobrovsky at 8,100. I get the merit. Islanders are on a back-to-back. Bobrovsky has been shaky of late, so you never know. Torts might turn to Korpisalo, but either way, I think the Columbus netminder is going to be in play in GPPs, maybe even cash. But, if I'm going to spend $8,000 in cash, I think I'm going to go Carey Price with the Taylor Hall-less Devils. So let's move on to that game now. We have the Devils traveling to Montreal to face the Canadiens. Excuse me. Yeah. The Devils are going to be without Taylor Hall, which firmly puts Carey Price in play. I think he's obviously going to be popular tonight. He's only 8,000, which is decent for him. Okay. I think you can definitely use him in cash, definitely in GPPs. Do you have to worry about goalie ownership? Goalie ownership is an interesting thing for me. I don't really mind goalie ownership as long as the goalie I pick is the play, There's no sense in fading a goalie for ownership purposes if you think he is the best play on the slate. So obviously anything can happen, but Carey Price is probably my top goalie in both formats without Taylor Hall. The New Jersey lines are a bit funky. I think it's Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, and Drew Stafford, which isn't bad, but it's kind of bad. It's kind of brutal without Taylor Hall, though. Second line Zajac, Coleman, and Gibbons. Do you really want to use that line? The third line, Brian Boyle, Jimmy Hayes, and Nick Lappin. Maybe Paul Mary's back tonight, but you know, if Paul Mary's back tonight, I think, you know, maybe the third line you can use in GPPs, but I think it's a full fade for me from the Devils side. On the Montreal side, I think there are three lines in play tonight for the Canadians. You know, the top line for me, I think, is going to be Drouin, Galchenyuk, and Shaw. Obviously, you know, if you want to get Pacioretty because he is the best player on the team, you can with Deneau. Not a huge Paul Byron guy. He does get 337 breakaways a game, kind of like Michael Grabner. Okay, I mean, I don't mind a Deneau, Pacioretty, Weber mini. But for me, you know, I like going back to Montreal 3, Buchanan. I know he's not everyone's favorite center, but he is only 3,200. Hudon at 3,600 is still a really good play, and Brandon Gallagher is the little engine that could on that team at 5,400. You know, I'm a huge Brandon Gallagher guy. I think you can use him in cash. I think you can use him in GPPs. He's just one of those high-energy guys that I like to use in DFS. Yeah, they've been off. I think you can use Hudon Weber mini power play stack for sure. I know Lehkonen skated today, but I don't think he's back. So, you know, my preferred play on the third line is Gallagher, but I don't mind Hudon just because he correlates on the power play with Weber. So if you're going defenseman, obviously Weber at 5,900 would be the guy to lock in. I don't mind Petrie at 3,800. And then you have a whole bunch of guys around the 3,000 to 2,800 range. Schlemko 2,900, Joe Morrow 3,000. I don't know if you really need to dig that deep, especially with Petrie only being 3,800. So I'd go Weber or Petrie for me. So yeah, you know, Carey Price in play in all formats. I think Corey Schneider, as much as I like Corey Schneider, I'm a big Corey Schneider guy. I think he's underrated. This is a tough matchup for him. I think you can use him in GPPs, though. I'm going to avoid him in cash for sure. But in GPPs, you know, the shot volume is going to be there for Montreal. Schneider has shown the ability to stand on his head. The thing with Schneider, if you get a couple by him early, sometimes, you know, he lets the floodgates open. But would I be shocked to see 32 saves and 1 goal allowed? No. But I think this is a Montreal game from the get. So Carey Price in all formats, Schneider in GPPs. I would say especially if you're using the Devils, but it's kind of hard to use the Devils tonight without Taylor Hall. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Anaheim Ducks traveling to St. Louis. I think Montreal for me, the Drouin line would be my top Montreal line, and then Deneau and Galchenyuk, Deneau and Pacioretty. So in this game, it's going to be more than likely Jake Allen against more than likely John Gibson. The game is in St. Louis. Pietrangelo is still out. Looks like Bo Meester's back. That's kind of a bump for me. Corsi's on the same page as me today. I think this is a game where you can target the goalies, and I probably am going to fade them from an offensive standpoint. I don't really like the Blues even strength lines. I don't like Tarasenko being away from Shen. Stastny, Sobotka, and Tarasenko. It's an okay line. I prefer it be Shen. Easy, buddy. Shen, Tarasenko, and even like someone with like Barbashev up with them would be nice. But the way it is, you know, Stastny, Sobotka, Tarasenko, Shen, Steen, and Yaskin. You know, I'm not a huge fan of their even strength lines. I will say Dmitry Yaskin, 3,400, is an interesting punt play for me if you need a single bullet for under 4,000 in your utility. But you can make a case if you want to stack the power play. Okay, I mean it's personally not something I'm going to be doing tonight. I like, even though Anaheim tanks a bunch of penalties, you know, it's kind of with Getzlaf back, with Silfverberg back, even though Perry's hurt, Getzlaf and Silfverberg together is a very good defensive line. Henrique with Cogliano and Raquel, I mean, it's nothing to, sneeze at defensively either. I understand that, the Ducks do take a lot of penalties, but they are much better defensively than they were even a few games ago. So Yaskin is an interesting punt for me at 3,400, but there is a case being said if your last spot is down to 4,000. I think sometimes it's even. I don't have data to support this, but I think sometimes it's better to even plug in a defenseman in your utility spot, because I think defensemen under 4,000 could have higher ceilings than a skater at 3,400. Not really. I mean, they have been playing good. I like Jake Allen. Yeah, Vince Dunn is power play one. I think you can use him as a punt defenseman for sure. It's just, as a whole in this game, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, and I think you can target the goalies. I like Jake Allen a tad bit better just because he's at home. He is more expensive. Yeah, so I mean, like, even if St. Louis doesn't score a lot on the power play, Vince Dunn at his price is going to see, a decent amount of shot volume. But for me, this is a goalie game. Jake Allen at 8,200 is pricey for me. But, if obviously there's going to be some interest in the Blues tonight from people. So if you're using the Blues, I think Jake Allen is a good GPP play. Gibson, if it is him at 7,300, I think is a good play as well. You did see the Blues get shut out by the Lightning. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Mike there. I don't think you really need to play the depth of the Ducks on this big of a slate. There's plenty of other lines you can fit in and that are going to be very low owned. I would imagine most of the lines you're playing tonight are going to be under 5% anyway. So going back to Gibson, 7,300. If you're fading the Blues, I think Gibson, if you're spending down a goalie, is one of my favorite low-priced goalies tonight. If NHLers were allowed to play in the Olympics, John Gibson could arguably, you can make a case that he would be the starter for Team USA. Obviously, probably Johnny Quick would get the nod, but Gibson would definitely be on the team. He's that good. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Toronto Maple Leafs traveling to Minnesota to face the Wild. It's going to be Freddie Anderson against Stalock. Yeah, I don't know. DK and their analytics are just a bunch of clowns. It's Freddie Anderson against Stalock. Austin Matthews is still out. So, with Stalock in net, I know it's a home game, but, I think this is a good spot for Bozak, JVR, Marner. I'm not really sure how Minnesota is going to stack up against the Leafs without Matthews, but you would imagine that one of the top two lines is going to get the JVR line, but I think this is a good spot for them regardless. Minnesota came out pretty lackluster last game. Dubnyk was really good, but then he got hurt. He's out for a couple weeks, it looks like. It's Stalock, and then they have an emergency goalie. So, other than that, for, Toronto, if you want to stack Kadri and Marleau, I think you can do that. It doesn't really thrill me too much. If you want... You can find a revenge game for everybody on the slate, I think. But, for me, I'm going to fade Stalock in cash. I know I've seen people talking him up in cash. I'm just not a fan of using Stalock in cash. I think you can use him in GPPs. He did get his revenge versus the Sharks. I don't know what that was. But yeah, we'll get to Fleury. I think you can use Stalock and GPPs if you're using Minnesota. The stall line is probably going to be a little bit more popular than the Koivu line, but I do like the Koivu line with Zucker and Coyle. I'm a big Coyle guy. I'm Josh Harris, and I love Charlie Coyle. So I think you're Avery. But, I think the more popular line tonight for Minnesota is going to be Stahl, Niederreiter, and Granlund, and I completely understand that. Yeah, I think there is merit to going there as well. The thing that does worry me about Minnesota is now that these lines have been together for 3-4 games now, their underlying advanced stats have been pretty rough. Also, Freddie Anderson has been playing really well. It wouldn't shock me to see Freddie have a really good game. You would think that the pace of this game is going to be pretty fast, but I don't know. Toronto's been playing these like sluggish, slug it out, low scoring games recently, and it's weird to see that from them. And Minnesota definitely can play that style if Toronto drags them into that. So this could be a very slow-paced game, even though people think it could be high-paced. I do agree. I think it can be a slow-paced game. For that reason, I do like Freddie Anderson in GPPs at 7,800. Especially if you're going to use the full line like a JVR line. They like to slug it out in the neutral zone now without Matthews, because Matthews is the only one who can like have zone entries really without a big problem. You want to get down? Marner can get in the zone. This one? Yeah. Okay. But, I generally agree with Corsi here. This is going to be a slow-paced game, so I think GPPs, the goalies, are in play. So let's move on to the next game. We have the Chicago Blackhawks traveling to Winnipeg to face the Jets. My screen just froze. It's going to be Hellebuck against Corey Crawford. There we go. The game's in Winnipeg, so I would imagine the Scheifele line is going to get the Tays line, and the Little line is going to get the Kane line. Listen, Winnipeg at home is always dangerous. I'm not a huge Corey Crawford guy. I think if you're going to use Winnipeg, it's going to be the top line tonight. It's going to be Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor. I think, with Bufflin out, I think, Trouba. You can use Trouba in any format. I don't mind Tyler Myers either. If you want to use the second line, okay. I'm not a Brian Little guy at all. I know he's cheap, but he doesn't interest me in any format. You want to use the second line. I prefer to go many of Line A Ehlers and Trouba, or Line A Ehlers and Myers, or if you need the salary, Josh Morrissey. Brian Little doesn't do much for me. So if it is Scheifele against Tays and Little against Kane, this is a Winnipeg 1 game for me. On the Chicago side, the possession numbers for Winnipeg aren't very good. So I think there is merit to using the Blackhawks tonight. Okay, I'm almost done, then we can go upstairs. I'm not huge on the Blackhawks tonight. I think, Hellebuck, this is a decent matchup for Hellebuck. Maybe, Bufflin does, with Bufflin out, I'm not sure how I feel about that because he does take a lot of dumb penalties, but he is also very good. And the Winnipeg PK is pretty brutal at home. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that. But for me, if I'm going to use the Chicago line, I think it's going to be the Tays line, Tays, Saad, Brinkat. If you've talked to me about Winnipeg before, I have pretty strong opinions about using them despite their bad possession numbers, but it does come back to bite them from time to time. I think this is a spot where it could bite them. DeBrincat loves to shoot. He's not shy about it, and that's someone I like to target in DFS. Yeah, Tays and DeBrincat play good together. Sod is just so fast that he's fun to watch. So for me, I'm going to use the Chicago top line if I'm going to use Chicago. But that's not something I like to do personally. I'm just giving you the plays from the game. Yeah, I don't know if you want to move Kyle Connor down, though. Kyle Connor on the top line is good. Excuse me. Whew. I don't know where you can put him. So maybe it would behoove the Jets to trade him. I don't know. Yeah, I also understand if you want to play, Anisimov, Schmaltz, and Kane. I'm not as high as them as the Tays line, but I like using Patty Kane just from the power play standpoint and the fact that Winnipeg has one of the worst penalty kills in the league. I do want to get a little bit of the Blackhawks power play exposure if I was going to use the Blackhawks. So I think that's another way to approach it. I don't know if you really need to get that creative tonight, but I believe Trouba is in tonight. I know he wasn't in skate this morning, but I think it was just maintenance. Yeah, I think he's in. So for me, I'm going to fade Corey Crawford. I don't have interest in him at 7,700. It's a hill that I will die on, that I really won't use Corey Crawford too often, especially on the road. Yeah, I don't mind Morrissey as a punt. He does see a good amount of time on the ice. Hellebuck at 7,900, I think, is in play in GPPs, especially if you're using the Jets. In cash, it's kind of a risky proposition. I'd rather spend the extra $100 on Carey Price. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Florida Panthers traveling to Colorado to face the Avalanche. It's going to be James Reimer against, more than likely, Semyon Varlamov. Be interesting to see if Evgeny Dadonov moves back up to the top line. I have not seen anything on that today. I may have missed it. There is a lot of games going on. But as it's currently constituted, I have the lines as Barkov, Huberdeau, Bustad, Trocheck, McGinn, and Dadonov. So on the Colorado side, the McKinnon line, McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen are going to go up against the Barkov line. I think that is a good matchup for Colorado. Just because, from a defensive side, Landeskog is the Avs' best defensive player. That line as a whole really does limit the high danger scoring chances against. I think, Colorado is a better defensive team than a lot of people give them credit for. I know they aren't very good, but I think, they're just because you're a bad team doesn't mean you're awful defensively, if that makes sense. I just don't think they have the offensive skill behind after the top line to really compete. Yeah. I don't know if Colorado 1's going to go overlooked tonight. Maybe because they have the matchup against Barkov, maybe they go a little bit lower owned. But, from a standpoint of ownership, I don't think you really have to worry about it. I'd be shocked to see Colorado over 15%, 10-15%. But even if that's the case, there's plenty of ways to differentiate. You okay? I do like the top line of Colorado tonight, especially I like using them at home. McKinnon, it's definitely going to be the ones against the ones. I do believe Como is going to get Trocheck as well. This is a pretty good matchup for Colorado. I do like Semyon Varlamov, yes. He's, like I say it every time, but it's like, if you look up GPP goalie in a dictionary, you're going to see a picture of Semyon Varlamov's face. Low floor, high ceiling. Like, there's no better GPP goalie than Varlamov. He could get lit up. Oh, I'd definitely not use Varlamov in cash. That, you know, that, he has a very low floor because when he gets lit up, he gets lit up. But you've seen it a few times this season. He'll stand on his head and make 50-something saves and steal the game. So I do like Varlamov and GBPs, especially if you're using Colorado. Yeah, never cash with Varley. I mean, that's scary. But yes, I definitely go price and cash. Yeah. On the Florida side, Reimer. I don't know. I'm kind of in a fade Reimer mode until, Luongo comes back. Yeah, Trocheck is an interesting play, especially if Dadonov's on that line. I know Como is going to match against Como, but that's I still would give the favor to Florida 2 there. Yeah, Trocheck. Yeah, so if you can fit Tyson, Eric Johnson's more expensive than Tyson Berry. I think it's a preference. It's a preference for me. If you're going to use Florida 2, I think I'd use them with Ekblad. I don't like using Yandel on the road. If you're using the top line of Florida, also Yandel also Ekblad. If you want to punt, I think Pizik or Matheson at 3,000 is decent. But I'm gonna fade Reimer in all formats. That's not something that really interests me tonight.
Daddy,
Yeah,
yeah.
it'll pop up.
Huh?
Well, it'll pop up. Don't worry. Let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the San Jose Sharks traveling to Calgary to face the Flames. It's going to be Mike Smith against Aaron Dell. This is a homecoming game for Aaron Dell. This is another matchup of 7,500 goalies. Like the Holtby matchup, they're both 7,500. I probably would rather use a goalie from this game than that game, although I could see this being a high-scoring affair. Yeah. I'm not really sure how I want to attack this game. I really like using Calgary 1 at home, but I also really like using Aaron Dell all the time. But I think this is a tough matchup for Dell tonight. I think this is a pretty even game. I think if you're going to take a stand on this game, I think the goalies in this game, I'd only use them if I'm using the team. Like if I'm using Calgary, I'd use Mike Smith. If I'm using San Jose, I'd use Aaron Dell. But I wouldn't, if I'm stacking Colorado, just for example, Colorado and, I don't know, Vegas, I'm not going to plug in Aaron Dell. I think this could be a high-scoring game. But I also think this could be a low-scoring game. I don't really know how to feel about this game. I do like Calgary 1. I also like San Jose 2. And I really like Burns tonight. Yeah, Backlund is probably going to get the ones. Yeah. Yeah, I would be shocked if Backlund got Couture line, even though they should. But coaches aren't very smart. Yeah. So for me in this game, I'm going to go with the ones of Calgary and the twos for the Sharks. I'm a big Burns guy, if you can fit him. You want to use Pickles, Vlasic at 4,000, okay. I prefer to go Heed if he's in at 3,000. I'm surprised he's still under 7,000, to be honest. I for sure thought he was going to be like 7,300, 7,400 today, but 6,800. I think that's really good value for Burns. If you're going to use Calgary 1, Giordano or Hamilton, I think there's always merit to using Calgary 2, just because of their price. So I think they're in play as a secondary line. But again, goalies in this game kind of worry me. I could see it a low-scoring game, but I can also see it a high-scoring game. I do like both Smith and Dell. But I think if I'm going to use them in a GPP, I'm just going to relegate it to if I'm using San Jose or Calgary. Okay. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Nashville Predators traveling to Edmonton to face the Oilers. The Predators are on a back-to-back. They absolutely curb stomped the Canucks last night, 7-1. It's going to be, I would be shocked if Pekarine's in net again. I think it's going to be UC Saros against Brossois. This is another hill I'm going to die on. I took a lot of heat for it last night. I don't like using Nashville on the road. Now they're on a back-to-back. I think this is a fadeable spot. I know it's Brossois, but I think this is an Edmonton game tonight. You know, okay, the one thing I'll say about Nashville is the Turris, Fiala, Craig Smith line has been unbelievable since Turris has come over from Nashville. Really lit a fire under Kevin Fiala. He's been great. I think, you know, if you want to use the Nashville line, it would be that one. But for me, even though I have Brossois ranked as one of my bottom goalies tonight in the Daily Fantasy Notebook, I think this is an Edmonton game for me. Yeah. Lucic, I'm not a huge fan of, but it makes sense. You know, McDavid, Lucic, and Puljuvari, 3,800. He's still really cheap. Clefbaum's way too cheap tonight. He's 4,500. Yeah, Lucic is terrible. But he's playing with McDavid, so fuck. That's all I have to say about that. I like Darnell Nurse for the purse tonight at 3,800. Yeah, you know, I don't, you know, this is a decent spot for them, though. I'm a big UC Saros guy, but Saros has been bad this year. It's because I think his, you know, positioning is a little bit off. He is a short goalie. He needs to grow. I do like the second line for Edmonton tonight. Nugent Hopkins, Maroon, and Camilleri. That's definitely going to be contrarian. I can tell you that right now. That line's definitely going to be contrarian. But I do kind of like that. Camilleri at 3,200 is a decent play. There's a bunch of, you know, Chris Russell at 4,200 is pretty funny because there's no way I'm going to spend 4,200 on Chris Russell when Nurse is 3,800 and Clefbaum is 4,500. Are people going to still chase Benning at 3,300? Probably. He's off the top power play now, though, so my interest in him is fairly low. Again, on the Nashville side, I'm probably going to fade back-to-back on the road. That's just what I do. This is a big slate, so, you know, obviously there's better spots elsewhere, but if you are going to use the Edmonton or a Nashville line, it would be the Saros line from me. Goalies in this game, I'm probably going to fade. I understand if you want to use Brossois. I think this is a winnable game for Edmonton. Personally, I'm probably not going to go there, but okay. Would you? But, you know, Saros I'm going to fade until he can show me that he can have a couple good games. It's right here. It's right there. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have Tampa Bay traveling to Arizona to face the... Hold on. We're almost done, then I'll help you, okay? Landeskog. You can ask me 98 names with Lucic, and I'm going to go with those 98 guys over Lucic most of the time. I'm just not a Lucic guy. I understand if you want to play him. He is playing with McDavid. He is on the top power play unit, so I do understand the merit of playing him. I'm just not a Lucic guy. But I have to give you my opinion, and I do think Landeskog's in a better spot tonight anyway. So Tampa Bay against Arizona. It's going to be Vasi against Ronta. almost done. Yeah, I'm fading Nashville tonight. So Tampa won. What do you want me to say about Tampa won? They're super expensive. They're over 22,000 a full stack. Yeah. Stop. This is what I'll say about Tampa 1. They're super expensive. I don't think they're going to be. I don't think they're going to have a lot of ownership on them. Maybe they will, because people think Arizona sucks, and even though the John Madden says your record is whatever he says. I think Arizona's a better team than they show. Avery. Now I lost my train of thought. I don't like targeting teams in Arizona. I think they play really well in Arizona. For me, I'm going to fade the top line. Even if I think they're going to be contrarian, I think I'm going to take a pass on them tonight. They're just too expensive. If you want to get some exposure to them in cash, okay. I do like the second line. I wish Yanni Gourde was on there over Palat. But Point, Palat, and Tyler Johnson is a nice play. They're gonna get depth of the Coyotes, which is generally good for the Lightning. Yeah, I wish Yanni was on the second line. On the Arizona side, I don't really like how their lines are put together. I wish Christian Fischer was on the second line over Duclair, because then I'd want to use Dvorak, Domi, and Fischer. But with Duclair there, I'm not really interested there. The top line doesn't really do too much for me. I do like Derek Steffen. You can use him at 4,300 as a punt. But Perlini and Reeder kind of meh. Yeah, so someone just said Sergachev. I really like using Sergachev. He has 4,700. He'd definitely be my preferred play over Hedman. I don't really like spending over 6,000 for a goalie unless it's Burns. I think there's a couple of Yotes defensemen that are in play. OEL at 4,600 is always in play for me at that price. Jason Demers at 3,000. Goligoski at 3,200, and Jacob Chikrin at 3,400. He's one of my favorite. He definitely improves the Coyotes. You okay? He definitely improves the Coyotes defensively, and this isn't the cupcake matchup that most people think it is. So I'm probably just gonna fade this game as a whole. If I am going to use anybody, it would probably be Point and Tyler Johnson. I wish Yanni Gourde was up there again, but what can you do? I'm not the coach. I'm not John Cooper. Vasi 8,400 I think is a tad pricey, but I don't know. I don't like using goalies in Arizona, like opposing goalies in Arizona. That's just not something I like to do. But 4 goals, if he gives up 1, he's not going to pay off at his price at 8,400. So, I'm probably going to fade Vasi at that price. If you want to use him at 8,400, okay. I think it's a good play. I think he's in a good matchup. But from a price perspective, I'm not going to pay 8,400 for Vasi in Arizona with Price at 8,000. Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't mind taking heat. If you're yelling at me, that's fine. I'll come back at you. I like throwing Jack Johnson and Tom O'Leary. Ronta's interesting for me. I think if you really need the salary savings and you want to punt a goalie, I think Ronta is a decent play. Is he going to win? I don't know. But if he sees 30 shots and gives up 3 goals or 2 goals, will he pay off? I don't know. But if you're spending down and you need, if you need the salary relief, I could see Ronta being a GPP play. I'd rather spend the extra 400 for Gibson, but if you really need to force in Ronta, I don't think he's going to go negative tonight. I don't know if that really helps. If he puts up like 2-3 points, maybe he can sneak a win. I don't know. I think, this isn't going to be the Tampa Bay beatdown that most people think it's going to be, but ultimately I do think Tampa Bay is going to win this game. So let's move on to the only 10 o'clock start tonight, which I think is going to be a popular target for a lot of people. It's going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins traveling to Vegas. I'm taking a stand. I don't think it's going to be a beatdown. I think it's going to be a fairly low-scoring game. If the over-under is 6, I'm taking the under. If it's 5.5, I'm taking the under. I'm taking a stand. I think it's under 5.5 goals tonight. So let's move on to the last game of the night. It's the Pittsburgh Penguins traveling to Vegas to face the Knights. It's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury against Matt Murray coming back, it looks like. Fleury is playing his former team for the first time. I think Pittsburgh's going to be a popular target tonight, especially the top line. Dominic Simon is 2,800. I guess you got to plug him in cash, right? At that price. I know they skated, Malkin, Kessel, and Hornquist on the second line yesterday. I think that's still the line. I think that's going to be a nice target for people. I think people are going to flock to that line. I like that line too, but I'm fading Pittsburgh because that's what I do, especially on a 12-game slate if they're going to be chalky. I don't want chalky Pittsburgh on a 12-gamer facing Fleury for the first time. But I do like that second line. I like Crosby, Gensel, and Simon as well. Simon just frees up so much space. Playing around Crosby, he could definitely easily pay off his salary. I do think there is ownership on Pittsburgh tonight for sure. You want to pay it for Letang? Okay. I mean, I'd rather spend the extra 400 on Burns, but I don't think Letang is a bad play. I like Mata at 3,900 as well. On the Vegas side, it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, I know the DFO lines and the lines on DK. Like the lines on DK, it's Crosby, Gensel, Sheary, and Malkin, Rust, Kessel. But I know they practiced yesterday as Crosby, Gensel, Simon, and Malkin, Hornquist, and Kessel. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But I think that's how they're going into the game tonight. I'll have to check with Brock on that. He would know better than me, to be honest with you. But I think that's how I have them. Yeah, we're just about done, buddy. You're doing really good. So on the Vegas side, I definitely think the top lines in play: Carlson, Smith, and Marchessault. They are a tad bit pricey for me, but I don't think you can ignore them in this matchup. I also don't mind Haula, Perron, and Neal. Neal's been playing really well lately, so is Haula. Eek and Tuck Mini, if you want to get creative for salary relief, isn't bad either. On the blue line, I probably go, Nate Schmidt and Colin Miller before I'd go to Shea Theodore. In net, this is interesting. Fleury, this is a narrative street for Fleury. He's going to be facing the team he won Stanley Cups with. I have him on the top line right now with Crosby and Gensel. Yeah. Definitely got to check the beats because I know that's how they skated yesterday in practice. I know DFO and Yeah, so that's how they practiced yesterday. I'm going to go with the Pens website. This is a narrative street for Fleury. He's facing the team that didn't protect him, that he won Stanley Cups with. I think you can. I'm not thrilled about the goalies in this game, but I think you can use them in GPPs if you're using that specific team. I could see this being a pretty wild affair. I'm kind of hoping it's low scoring because I'm fading it, but I think my preferred play would be Fleury over Matt Murray in this game. I think, even if it's like a 4-3 game, I think Vegas sneaks it out. I don't know, Sarah, but that is my thoughts on this 12-game slate. I don't think either of these goalies are out using cash. So that is my thoughts on the 12-game slate. Yeah, it's a lot of revenge there. But everyone on Vegas is a revenge game at some point. Every game, you can find a revenge narrative for someone on Vegas. So that is the 12-game slate. My voice is pretty beat up, but I will take some questions. Almost done. Oh. Yeah, Verbata's back in the lineup. I think he's a decent punt tonight. I like him because he shoots the puck. 3.2 is not bad. Top 3 lines. Did he? I thought he's back in the lineup today. Top 3. Let's see. I'm going to go... For my personal preference, is going to be Philadelphia, Colorado, and Vegas. But I think Minnesota's in play, Montreal's in play, Columbus is in play, Boston's in play, Tampa's in play, Edmonton's in play, Pittsburgh's in play, Winnipeg, Chicago. There's so many options tonight. Someone just said, yeah, Hornquist is online too. Favorite went off in the 6K range. Favorite in the 6K range. Burns. McKinnon, Pacioretty, Panarin, Hornquist if he's online too. Favorite cash goalie is Carey Price. Favorite GPP goalie could also be Carey Price, but I like. Do you like Varlamov? I like Elliott. As crazy as that sounds, but Carey Price would probably be at the top. John Gibson, if you're spending down, I think you can. I like Jake Allen as well if you're spending up. Vasi, but they're expensive. I think you can make a case for Freddie Anderson, Stalock. There's a bunch of goalies. Like, goalie is really deep tonight. I do like Mike Smith. I also like Aaron Dell. That game just kind of confuses me. It's hard for me to take a stand on that game. Just follow the news. You have to be around, for NBA, you have to be around 6K. If you're playing NBA, you got to be around Twitter for Lock to get the news. That was the $333 curveball for MLB. 6K. So let's go 6K. Here we go. Whoopsie daisy. I just do a NHL one now. I don't know what I'm doing for MLB season yet. That's to be determined. Around 6K. Zucker, Point, Couture, Granlund, Landeskog, Simmons, Atkinson. It would probably be, the top 5 or 6. No problem. I think there's a lot of players in that range that are really good tonight. Leafs mini, my take was, I do like the JVR line for Toronto. I like the top 2 lines for Minnesota. But without Matthews, Toronto really slows down their pace of play. And I think they can really drag Minnesota into a slow-paced game. So while people think this might be a fast-paced game, like a really high-scoring game, it does worry me that this could be a slow-paced 2-1, 3-2 type of game. I think there's always ownership on McDavid. He'll probably see ownership tonight, but I don't think there's many overly chalky landing spots tonight, so I'm not really sure you have to worry about ownership, especially with your secondary lines, because there's so many options, there's so many ways to go that even if you do land in the chalky spot, the second line you use is probably going to be contrarian. Yeah. I wouldn't overthink ownership tonight. Favorite cheap line? Probably Montreal 3. I just really like them on it. No problem. Montreal 3, Calgary 2. Columbus 2. Tampa 2, yeah. I wish it was Yanni Gourde, but Tampa 2 is in a good spot tonight, yes. Winnipeg, Chicago, just to recap what I said. I think this is a Winnipeg game. I like the Winnipeg top line. The one thing that does make me want to use Chicago a little bit is Winnipeg's poor power play, so I think you can definitely make a case for using Chicago. But if I was using a line in Winnipeg, it would definitely be the top line. The second line I like, but I don't like Brian Little, so I'd use Ehlers, Line and Trouba. Chicago, I'd go with top line first, then the second line. Okay. All right, so that will wrap it up for me. I'll be on Twitter. I'll be in chat. So hit me up there. This is a big slate, so don't worry about ownership. Don't overthink it. Play your top plays. Where do I live? I live in New Jersey. No, I'm in New Jersey. So if I didn't get to your question, hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up in the premium chat. Good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win money. If I have bad takes on the show, make sure to tell me. If I had good ones, tell me as well. But more so, if I have bad ones, tell me. Because if I don't get better, how can you guys rely on me every night? I don't know. That's just how I feel. I always try to get better to help you guys out the best that I can. So we'll see you tomorrow. Avery says bye. Good luck, everybody.